Hello, y'all. How are you doing? It's been a while. It's been several weeks because I've been moving, transitioning, traveling without internet, with a very dodgy internet. The country that I'm in now, I cannot do my video podcast, so it's just going to be my voice. So, I wanted to share with you a little bit of my continued journey. And for those of you that maybe started following, a year and a half ago when I had kind of left home and was seeking for new home and kind of having an adventure with my daughter in the meantime, in the process of it, I want to share a little bit about kind of the update on that and the wisdom that I've garnered from it. But the saying that really to me just points directly to what I want to speak to today is the saying goes like this: life is lived forwards, but understood backwards. Life is lived forwards, but understood backwards. So, when you're in a phase of life, there might not be the clarity, there might even be confusion. It's like, what am I doing? Where is this going? What's the point of this? What does this mean? I feel confused. I really want the clarity. Why is the clarity not coming? Why am I having to go through this? There's all the why questions, right? And you might be in that state of kind of confusion and not knowing for a long period of time, or not able to make sense why everything that's happening or has been going on has been happening and going on, until finally you reach a point and all of a sudden it lands. And then you go, oh, now I get it. Now I understand why I went through what I went through. And the reason is because life isn't linear. It's not from point A to B to C to D. It's not you're born, you live, you die. Everything is cyclical by nature. Nature is cyclical. We are nature. It's a complete illusion that we should be living linearly, because when we live linearly, we have this expectation that, well, my forward moving trajectory should be this. And then we wonder, when it isn't in alignment with that trajectory or what we expected, we go, what's wrong? What did I do wrong? Why is it not working? And it's like, yeah, because it was never meant to be linear. It was always meant to be cyclical. And that is our evolution, is this kind of spiraling in and spiraling out, right? So there's the movement inwards where we learn more about ourselves, and then that spiral takes us further outwards. So that point of clarity won't come until we've reached the end of that particular cycle and phase. Now, there might be moments of clarity in the process, right? Within the spiral, you could say. And the more that we're connected and in tune with our intuition, our higher self, the more that we're in conversation with our soul, with source, there are more moments of clarity, and there's the breadcrumbs of intuition that kind of take us to our next step. But I feel like as a whole, to really understand, why am I going through this? We don't fully understand it until we come to the end of that particular cycle. And then, of course, we begin a new cycle, right? It's a new season again. So today I want to talk about that process and that journey and the bits of wisdom that I've gained along the way, but really focusing on this thought, this paradigm of life is lived forwards, but understood backwards. So let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So, where to begin? So, I spent a bit of time traveling, and then ended up in a place that I thought I was going to call home. It was very unexpected. It was a place that I had tried to move to a couple times, and it didn't really work. And it wasn't until I had this invitation to come for a wedding that I ended up finding a place for this summer and ended up staying. The rest was kind of history. And that was an interesting lesson in and of itself, right? That often when we seek for something and we try to make it happen, it doesn't always happen. And it's when we kind of let go of it that it, like, the universe, spirit, source kind of does it for us. If it's meant for us, it won't pass us by. And so clearly I was meant to be there, but it was almost like I needed the invitation and to let go of the seeking or the trying, which is ironic because this whole last 15 months has actually been a lot of seeking and trying and letting go of trying, and, a lot of what I've shared along the way. But I want to kind of recap it. I also, on a side note, I don't know a whole lot about human design, but when I kind of really understood that, what my personal design was, that's really helpful to kind of understand, are you going against the grain of your design, or are you going with your design? So that's kind of just like a little seed that, I'm going to drop in there, that if you're ever curious, look it up, because it makes a really big difference. Everybody thinks I'm a manifester, but I'm not. I'm a generator, and a generator needs an invitation, or I need something to respond to. And then when there's something to respond to, I take action. So it's interesting of like, right, when you try to make something happen, Corinne, it's not the way your design works. It's waiting for some kind of invitation to come in, and then I get to choose. I get to respond to that if I so choose to. So I had the invitation, and I came, and things kind of just fell into place. And it was a very interesting experience, because on one hand, I felt like, oh, I've landed in my habitat. It was absolutely my habitat, the environment that just for me made me come alive. It brought me back to myself. I felt this like joy and gratitude and bliss that I hadn't felt in so long. And I felt so grateful every single day. It was amazing. And as is such is life, the paradox of life, I also had this very, paradoxical experience of bliss and hell, like paradise and hell. These kind of extremes, because I was in this beautiful habitat that felt very much in resonance with me, and yet I was dealing with some really challenging things, like constant daily construction sound that really towards the end grated on my very nervous system, and nearly made it snap. And I also was dealing with, feeling like I had found home, or home had found me, but could not find a physical house. Over 15 months, moved maybe 10 times, something like this. And long story short, just to bring you up to date, I've left that place. I don't share geographical locations with public, so sorry if it seems a little bit ambiguous, but I left where I was. I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm done. If a house hasn't appeared, then this cannot be my home. And at first that was really difficult, because the thing is with life is again, going back to that trajectory, that linear way of looking at life, we go, okay, well, I've come here. It makes sense. This feels good. This feels like home. So home should be here. And this is how it's going to, I'm assuming that maybe, or I'm guessing that this is how it's going to unfold, or this is how I'd like it to unfold. I'd like to find my home and my community and my partner and all of these things. We have the trajectory lined up for us as we'd like it to unfold. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with visioning what you want. But that really annoying saying of sometimes what you need is not what you want, or what you want is not what you need, right? So I'm going through these kind of 15 months of oscillating between feeling so grateful and so happy to really being so extraordinarily tested, and really struggling at times, like really painful, and not understanding why it's not landing, but then equally really learning to trust. And, over the last year and a half, I really, as I've shared before, I really learned the art of not being driven by fear and anxiety and worry, like really just trust, surrender, have faith, be in the present moment, trust that everything is happening for a reason, that life is happening for you, not to you. I really not just learned as a concept, but felt and experienced the embodiment of living in that way. And I have to tell you, it's really worth giving it a go, because it's a lot less stressful in terms of it's not as scary. You're not driven by fear, right? Underneath it all, I could tell that there was a certain survival that was being poked at, because when you don't have your fundamental needs of just your home base, where you don't have to think about where am I going to live next month, and can I just have my shit in one place and move my stuff, and it's my things, and I know I can stay here, and then you can kind of focus on the rest of your life. But, what I did learn along the way was really going inwards, and finding the resource within myself, and the guidance within myself, and within all this external noise of finding the quiet within myself. So in this process of the 15 months, was very confusing. It's like, well, what the hell? Like, is this the place I'm meant to be? Is it home? It feels good, but the house isn't showing up. And so there was all this confusion. There wasn't the clarity. It kept on kind of oscillating back and forth. And do I want to be here? Do I not want to be here? And it was confusing. That's as best as I can describe it. And it wasn't until about maybe 2, 3 weeks ago where it dropped. Like, meaning I got it, I understood it, but it wasn't until I was literally nearing the end. I wouldn't know it at that point, but I was nearing the end of that particular cycle. It was about 2 weeks before I left very spontaneously. So this is my point, is that things aren't understood in the moment. They're understood at the end of that phase and cycle. And so what I really recognized was, oh, I get why I've been here, that maybe this wasn't ever meant to be home, but it was meant as a very important transition in my life. Now, keep in mind that I felt like I had already been in transition for a long time. And it's like, I just want to land. The whole time I was like, I'm finding home. I want to find home. I want to find home. I want to find home. That is the driving force, you know? Here's the thing, when you ask for something, it doesn't necessarily appear or manifest in the way that you think. I was asking for home in regards to a geographical location in a house. What I can reflect back upon now is I was really, really, truly being brought back into my inner home. And of course, that's been a journey that I've been on for a long time, and I think it continues. I don't know if it ever really ends. But it was like a real landing on a deeper level of embodiment than perhaps I have ever experienced before. And I think this is the beauty and the gift of getting older, is with each year that passes, if you're on that path with the intention of returning closer to yourself, returning to your true essence, being in conversation with your soul, your spirit, with source, coming back closer to home, which means just coming into the essence of who you truly are, there is this deepening and deepening and deepening every single year that passes, you know, and the comfort of settling into like a big cushy reading chair, you know, like lounge chair. That's kind of what for me aging feels like. It's this yeah, this beautiful settling in, and the roots go deeper, you know, and as the roots grow deeper, you can also extend further up and out, right? You can expand more the more deep the roots go. So I recognized that I had been in this transition, but I recognized within that, oh, this transition had come to a place where I didn't know anyone. It was a complete new slate, because I didn't have, you know, past relationships. I didn't have family. I didn't have any friends there. You know, everything was literally, this is a clean slate. There's no story here. There's no narrative here. And add to that, that I was like, oh, I finally landed in my habitat, like the habitat that really works for me, right? See, I'm a proper mermaid. You know, the palm trees, the lusciousness, the moist air that my particular dosha needs. Everything was like, yeah, the reason why it's been set up like this for you, Corinne, is so that you could really, really come home to yourself. And the sea had been like my absolute love, you know, and I've been wanting to call in my love, and I've been wanting to call in my home. And what this place offered me was like, yeah, you're going to fall in love with yourself. You're going to remember who you are when you wash away. Literally, the sea was the cleansing aspect of wash away, let go, let go, let go of your past. And we all have our past, right? And there's nothing wrong with our past, but we are at a point in our evolution where it's like, let it go. The stories of your past, the dynamics of your past, your family dynamics, your relationships, maybe your past marriages, maybe your former job, all of these things, maybe even the geographical place, let it go. It brought you to who you are today, but you no longer need to hold on to it. And it's not about throwing it away or severing yourself from it. It's about resolving and bringing that cycle to completion so that you can shed it, you can let go of it, like the leaves fall off of the tree in winter. Let it go. It doesn't need to hold on to it. There's a new cycle beginning. There's a new rebirth and a regrowth that's going to occur. Let it go. And so I really, I thought, oh, this place is my home. Like, I love it. But mind you, there were things that also drove me crazy about this place. There's a lot of issues with it, right? So it wasn't all like beautiful paradise bliss. There were often times where it felt like hell in paradise. And I will always be honest about those moments because life isn't Instagram. It is not Instagram. Life is the real shit. It's the raw shit. And there's a lot of humanity in that. And that's the way that it's meant to be, that's the grist for the mill, right? That brings us into the wisdom that we later harvest once that cycle is complete. So I really got that, like, oh, I've been here to heal. I've been here to heal. And the water has been that catalyst for me. And me every day looking out at the water, walking to the sea, or looking at the beautiful, luscious trees and the flowers. And that was bringing me into my habitat so that I could really drop into myself and feel held and nurtured by that. Now, what was interesting is it wasn't just about the beauty of healing, right? We want healing to be like this beautiful thing where I'm like, I'm going to be held the whole way and I get to heal and let go. And oh, Mani Padme Hum, it's all lovely, right? Part of my healing was also the inner renovation. And that's what I got. Again, at the end of this cycle, I understood I have gone through an inner renovation. And a friend of mine had pointed this out that, I saw her for dinner. This was a couple months ago. And, the whole thing with the construction that just literally nearly broke me. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I remember asking myself, okay, if as within, so without, what is this reflecting back to me? What is going on? I don't feel like I have all this chaos and noise and clunkiness and, just awful shrieking sound within me. I don't feel like that's reflecting my inner being. But again, I didn't understand it until after the fact that it wasn't the noise and it wasn't the chaos. It was literally, I was being renovated. That's what, the outer construction was simply reflecting that I was internally reconstructing myself. And I want to point out, because I say this a lot in my work, it's not because I'm broken. It's not that I need to be fixed. That's not the point of this. We don't need to, quote unquote, improve ourselves and make ourselves a more polished, shiny version of who we are. We just simply need to come back to ourselves. And sometimes that inner construction and renovation is actually like, it's pounding down walls, tearing down walls that you don't need to have anymore, just as a metaphor, right? Walls, it could be, open up the space and make more windows so that like the light of your being can shine through. It's really normally the stripping back rather than the trying to carve out. I love how I don't know if it was Michelangelo that said this, that it's like the sculpture is already in the stone. It's just chipping away the stone and then revealing the sculpture. I don't know if he said it or who said it or if anyone said it. That's just the image that comes into my mind. It's like the sculpture is already there. We're just chipping the stone back and it's revealed. Or maybe, yeah, somebody had said that to me, but I don't remember the name of who it was that actually spoke those words. So I'm sorry if I'm not giving due credit where it belongs. But you get the point. So I was going through this inner renovation and cleansing and healing and shedding and letting go. And then, everything that I was dealing with on a physical, visceral, human level of like, okay, if after 15 months the house isn't appearing, this isn't meant to be my home. And there was an aspect of that was heartbreaking. It's like, well, why couldn't it work? But then it was also like, yeah, but there are things, Corinne, that maybe you never really wanted to be here long term because of X, Y, and Z. And that's okay. It's like okay to just allow something to be what it is and to serve its purpose, be it a place, a person, a thing, a job, a hobby, an expression, whatever it is. It's like it has its own cycle. It's not linear. It's not always forever. That's okay. Allow it to have its phase, allow it to have its cycle. And when it comes to completion, a new cycle will begin. And sometimes it's within the same geographical place. Sometimes it's within the same relationship or marriage or the same job. And there's just a reinvention. And sometimes it's like literally, no, close that, tie the knot. You know what I mean? Not tie the knot as in marriage, but like complete that loop, tie it, cut it, release it, right? So, how I got to that point was actually through my physical nervous system said, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot move again. And instead of like moving forwards, feeling like, okay, we're moving into our home, or we had just kind of gone from being in a one bedroom where my daughter was lying sleeping on the couch, for a year, to we had finally found a place for a month where it was like a two-bedroom, and it was like, wow, this is like luxury for us to have our own rooms. But then it was, instead of moving forwards that we would find our permanent home, it was moving backwards. I would have had to move 3 times in the month of August, and we would have had to share a room and a bed in somebody else's house and then do the same thing in another place. And I just thought, nope, I'm done. I'm done. So my first thought was, okay, just book a flight and come back, go see my mom, get some support, have, some meals cooked for you, have some stability, and just like decompress, let your nervous system decompress so that you can come back and be re-energized. And so I'd made that decision, but it didn't quite feel totally right. There, I woke up one morning and I was like, but what am I coming back to? Like, if home hasn't presented itself, what am I coming back to? And I felt myself really feeling like, you know what, I'm just done. I'm done with this place. And I'm ready to move on. And me going back to where I had lived before, where my mom currently is, that had been like last resort. I had so much resistance. I was like, no way, I will go on to somewhere else before I do that. But my body and my nervous system was like, no, I don't have the energy for it. I cannot pack my things again and look for another place and start all over and meet new people and find a new school. And I just was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I had one day where I was absolutely and utterly just exhausted, just felt like I can't even move my body. And when I woke up and I was like, I actually just want to pack up my car and get on the ferry and just leave. I just want to leave. I just want to go, and I want to go back and just, I need stability. I need consistency. I need to just know that I can stay for as long as I need until I found my home. So I want to share now how life, when we're on the right path, how things fall into place, right? We're not hitting the wall. And that's what I'd felt. I felt like the analogy that I often use of the bee that is just crawling up the same window, banging its head, trying to get out, being like, I see it. I see the world out there. Why can't I get through? Why am I hitting this invisible wall? When you're like, just if you turn your head a little bit to the left, there's an open window there, right? And then you can go through. And that's what I felt was happening to me. It's like I'm just hitting a wall again and again and again and again. And it's like, okay, I need to step back a little bit and I need to redirect. I didn't know where to redirect to, but it's like, just step back and allow yourself to see things differently. Sometimes your body has to do it for you, right? So that point of, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. And I found this real desire of like, you know what? I want to go back. I want to go back and, just stay in my mom's place. And I didn't have the same resistance. It was actually like, it felt like it would be a relief. But I thought, but shit, I can't. I have to come back to where I am because my daughter's father has booked a flight and he's going to come back here and ironically take her back to where my mom lives and where we used to live. But I have to, I have no choice, but I have to come back because he's already booked his flights. Then my daughter was on Zoom speaking to him and she said, oh yeah, we're going back and, we're going back for a couple of weeks to visit grandma. And he said, oh, well, I haven't booked my flights yet. So maybe you shouldn't go back. Maybe you should just like actually. So anyway, I don't want to go into the details of it, but just basically to say what I thought had been the block wasn't there, which was very outside of the usual because normally he books flights right away and he's very like planned person that plans everything in advance. And this time he hadn't. And so it was like, okay, that for me was the invitation of like, you can go now. You can go now. Like what you're actually wanting deep down. You don't just have to take the flight back and then come back and move another couple times and still continue in this cycle that felt like I had reached a dead end. And I just simply didn't want to do it anymore. And I think we need to recognize this as well. It's like, I didn't want to do it anymore. So the door had been opened and now there was possibility for me to follow the line that I wanted to follow. Now, let me backtrack a second because this is also an important part of the story. The day where I'd really felt like this, enough. I don't want to do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. And I went through, there was a week where there were a couple days within that week that I really hit like a rock bottom again and had a really hard day, a lot of tears, a lot of just, really going into the shadow of things and finding it hard to just, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. To the point of like, I don't even want to be this character anymore. I don't want to be on this timeline anymore. And in part of, I don't want to go into the depths of it, but it was sometimes you have these moments where it's like, I don't even want to be Corinne anymore. I don't want to exist anymore. I don't want to be consciousness anymore. It was like, I was so fatigued that it was like, let's just call this quits. And I want to be very mindful as I say that I don't mean taking my life. That's not what I mean. That's not the place that I go to ever. But it was just when you're like, I'm done with this. Whatever this is, I am done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I remember going out and I always look at the stars. I look at the night sky, and it's where I kind of have the conversation with upstairs and my higher self, my soul. And I just really directly and succinctly said, I can't figure this out with my little human brain anymore. I can't. So I'm handing it over to you. It's up to you. You guide me. You drive me because I cannot figure this out. I went back into my room and I listened to a podcast, and I hadn't listened to something in a long time. I've been really actively wanting to not be on my phone. I've taken myself off of, like, I'm very rarely post on social media anymore, because I felt like I need clarity. And in the need of clarity, I need to remove all distraction. And there's a lot of distraction on our phones. So I just removed myself from that. I wasn't even listening to podcasts, even though they can be incredibly inspiring and helpful and wonderful to listen to. It was like, no, I need silence. I need space. I need quiet. I need to not have all of these opinions and thoughts and teachings and blah, 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 blah. I don't need any of that. I need a clean slate so I can listen. And I'll tell you right now, the moment I disconnected from all of that, that's when all of these things started to come in and land. The clarity came through, the intuition came through, the decisiveness came through. It was when I removed all of the distractions that I was clearly able to hear. So I did listen to a podcast that night, though, and she said something that I really love. She said two things. One of the like her kind of mantra that she says every day is, how good could it get? Show me, how good could it get? And bring me to my highest timeline, my highest, greatest version of myself. If we're multidimensional beings living out parallel lives, bring me to my highest and greatest self. I want to speak to her. I want to be in communication with her. I want to be on her timeline. What is she doing? What choices is she making? Right? Bring me there and show me. Let life surprise me, but show me, how good could it get? For everyone involved, how good could it get? The next morning was when that real clear, concise decision came in, that it was like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to be here. I don't want to just fly and take a trip and then come back and keep on doing this. I want to pack up my car. I want to get on the ferry and I want to leave. That was the morning where that clarity came through. And then that was the day where my daughter's father said, oh, I haven't booked the flights. Do you see? It was literally from one day to the next, everything became very clear, very decisive, and everything lined up. Now, I'm the type of person that often is in conversation with spirit or soul. And so I do pay attention to the signs that come in. And I had a totemic experience that day. I was speaking to my mom. I was starting to look at ferries because I was on an island and trying to figure out how to do this. And it was really like, it was really intense. I had all the emotions like, am I going to do this? Am I going to go back? Am I going to leave this place? Am I done? And everything underneath was like, yes, Corinne, yes, this is what you want. And again, or this is what you need, right? And my daughter comes in and she said, oh, Mama, there's a cicada on, like, lying on the balcony wall. Normally they're never there. They're always on the trees, and it looked dead. It looked like it was just smack right in the center of the balcony. It's not a railing, but like a cement block. And so I went out and looked at it, and I was just sitting there. And I was like, okay, what does it mean? What is the totemic meaning of this? Because often when an animal kind of either dies before you or presents itself, there's a meaning to it. There's a message. I really take it as spirit is communicating with you. And so I looked it up, and lo and behold, the meaning is letting go. letting go. And it's the end of a cycle. It's an end of a big cycle and phase and the beginning of a new one, but you have to let go. And so for me, that was the sign of let go of this place, Corinne. Let it go. Yes, there's a part of you that loves it so much. It felt like it could have been a home. It's your habitat. But then there was also the reality of it was very different. Too many people, too many tourists, too expensive, no housing, total housing crisis. Things are overpriced. There's a part of my nervous system that could never relax because there's constant movement and chaos and noise, so much noise and sound. And my being needed stability. And actually, I'm going to backtrack again. Sorry, memory comes in not linearly. That week where I had this kind of, insight and reflecting upon things and what was I really wanting, it wasn't just home. Now it moved to like, I need stability. And I remember my mom saying, well, maybe you can ask yourself, not where is home or where is my house, but like, I want stability. Show me where stability is. And when I tuned into that and into the place that I was living, I asked myself, is this place stable? And the answer was so clear. It was like, no, this place is not stable. It's anything but stable. It's transient by nature. And it's transient because it has all this water around it. You're on an island. There's water. And I mean, I love it. I'm a mermaid. So for me, it was like heaven. But energetically, there was no stability. The people come and go. The tourists come and go. The water comes and goes. Everything was transient and forever moving. And I'm like, no, what I need is stability. I really need stability. And so that was another thing that then informed everything. It was like, okay, it made it very clear that this place isn't stable. What I'm looking for is stability. So guide me towards that. Show me where that place is. So I love this totemic experience of like, let it go, Corinne. It was just your place to heal. It was your place to clean the slate. It was your transition to really come back home to you. You found your inner home. And I did meet like beautiful people and wonderful community and all of these things, but it just didn't really land in the way that I wanted it to land. And that's okay. Let it go. It served its purpose. And I also think that it's like, if I'm ever meant to go back there, I will. I will be invited back there. And this time I'm not going back unless there's a house like, here, Corinne, you can move here. I'm not moving again until I can move all of my stuff and be done with it. So I trust. And I think at this point, because it's like I'd handed over the reins to my soul and said like, okay, you show me, you guide me. My job is to be the receptor. And I've really been feeling this and hearing this as I've been in my meditations is like, you're just here to receive this. The next phase is not something that you figure out with your mind. You're not seeking, because I wrote about this too. It's like, I don't want to look anymore. I don't want to find anymore. I want to be found, right? I don't want to seek. I want to allow. I don't want to look for. I want to receive. So my job is just be the receptor. Be the receptor, open up. I can be in my magnetism, but allow it to come to me. And I've known this, right? But it's hard when you're in a position of like, I have to find a home, and was trying to let it naturally come to me, but it wasn't coming. So of course, then you seek and you're on the, whatever website and getting the notifications. There is an element of looking, and that's kind of not the way that life really works. But even in the receiving of it, nothing was coming in. So then it was clear, like, okay, this has just been a certain phase, a certain transition. I've gained a lot, even through the struggle. Trust it. And when I handed it over to my soul and said, okay, you guide me now. My little human brain can't figure this out. You guide me. I will just be the receptor and the receiver. I will listen, and then I will take action. And you got to trust it. When it comes in, you go, really? Is this the direction it wants to take me in? You have to trust it and then take action on it. And you know what? It's going to be scary. When I booked my ferry, it was scary, and it wasn't straightforward. I couldn't go on the day that I wanted to go. I had to find another place for 4 nights, so I had to move again. But actually that ended up being a beautiful experience, and met this wonderful, lovely woman. And I think one of the things that I've learned in this period of time is life isn't so much about what you do. We're still a bit in that patriarchal paradigm that's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to achieve? What are you going to succeed in? I even hear a lot in the spiritual community. What is the legacy you're going to leave behind? You don't need to leave a legacy. We're here to be. We're here to learn about relationship with ourself, relationship to others. How much can you live in your heart? How true and authentic can you be? How kind and loving and generous can you be with yourself, with others? Our relationships is what it's all about. Relationship to self, relationship to other, relationship to earth, to the cosmos. Everything is about relationship and creating as much harmony and truth and authenticity and pure, genuine love. As much as we can create and embody that, that's the point. It's not the legacy you need to leave behind, because that's more doing, right? That's more achieving, that's more proving. No, you get to just be you, but you learn about yourself through the relationship you have with yourself, with your environment, and with those that are in your life, right? That's all this is we're learning more about ourselves, and through that learning we evolve. And in that evolution, we're also coming closer and closer towards our essence again, right? Because we forgot. But we're coming back home as a more evolved version ourselves, but not because we need to improve, but just because the soul loves to learn and grow. It loves that, right? Just as a plant loves to grow towards the sunshine. It's just natural, right? It's not out of like self-development and self-growth and self-improvement. It's just the natural joy of growth. And I think we're really meant to just do the things that bring you joy, do the things that inspire you. Do it because you want to express yourself, because you want to have this experience, but not because there needs to be a final product or a certain measurement at the end that is going to prove that you're good enough, worthy enough, successful enough, that you've lived your purpose, that now it's all okay, you fulfilled your mission in life. No, it's just an experience. Live it. Love it. That's it, right? So I made this bold and brave decision to right, I'm going to go back. And the last 4 days were like, there was some emotion. I had some tears, but also interestingly, there were things that was like a little bit more construction came up. My daughter and I went back to a beach in another part of the island that we really loved, and it had totally changed. They like literally changed it by putting in sand. There was way more people. It wasn't what it had been before. And it's like, okay, it's just showing us like it's okay to let go. We're going to make it easier for you to let go. But also things that I really appreciated and will always appreciate, and really feel grateful for the connections that I made there that I know will be there. Nothing's lost, right? Even when you let go of a place, nothing is lost. And I always know how things are going to feel in my being, that is going to be the real indication, right? So it's like, when I leave and I get on the ferry, am I going to be heartbroken or am I going to feel relief? And when I got on the ferry, I had the clarity. The clarity came in of like, wow, it's so chaotic here. And I felt relief. And actually backtracking again, the moment that I booked my ferry, and it was so scary to do that. It felt so like permanent, although of course nothing is permanent. You can always change your mind. You can always come back. But I cried with relief. I cried with relief. And so I knew that it was like, everything was like, yep, this is the right decision. And I kept on having the confirmations, and I kept on asking for signs. Now, I'm going to backtrack again. Sorry, this is like all squiggly, this story. When I booked my ferry and I made that decision, and I was like, right, this is what I'm doing. I'm packing it all up and I'm leaving. I'd gone in and out of the balcony all day where that cicada was, and it was there and it didn't move, and that was that, right? But I kept on coming to just sit with it. Once I had booked my ferry, I went out to the balcony and the cicada was no longer there. So I was like, okay, thank you, Spirit. Spirit was like, okay, you got the message. You took action. You did what you were kind of, intended to do. And that was it. And so now the totemic experience, the messenger could leave, right? So I'm dropping that in as something that's really important, because Spirit is constantly in communication with us. It's just whether we have the presence and that we're the awareness and that we're paying attention to actually receive the signs. And sometimes the signs come in on their own accord, and then sometimes we have to ask for them. And I had asked for a sign the following morning, because of course when you make a decision, sometimes you're like, ooh, okay, can I just have the confirmation? Did I make the right decision? And I'd ask for signs, and they'd come in, and I was like, okay, cool. I kept on getting it. And then all these synchronicities started to come in around the country that I was going back to. And that just showed me all the more that, okay, all of this is meant to be. All of this is like everything is orchestrated, right? So the synchronicities come in, the kind of, I don't know if you ever heard or read the book, The Celestine Prophecy, where basically you're just handed one synchronicity after the next, that are the breadcrumbs that are showing you the way. We want the whole map. We want the whole image and the whole picture. Like, show me the whole thing, where I'm going to be, where the house is, where the partner is, where the job is, where the whatever it is that you're seeking for. But often it gets presented to us step by step by step, dot by dot, crumb by crumb. My journey back was very smooth. It was beautiful. I saw dolphins and turtles and a stingray, and it was just smooth as smooth can be. And again, that showed me like you're on the right path for now, right? It's not forever. It's the next right step. And I often find this with intuition is just show me what is the next right step, because then if I take that step, I'll be presented with the next right step and then the next right step. And so it's really just being present to each and every step along the way and trying. It's so easy to want to jump ahead and to know the whole trajectory, right? But it doesn't work that way. So I've landed back. I'm staying with my mom. There's an element of like relief, and it's really lovely, and seeing old friends and running into people that I never used to run into, and all sorts of different things coming up. And two, of course, there's the challenge. When we make the right decision, it doesn't always mean that everything is easy. I had a day where I was like, what the hell am I doing here? And I can't live with my mom. And I can't do this. And, the internet isn't working, and oh my, all of these things. But it's like, that's okay. Move through it. Let it be. It's going to be part of the process. It doesn't necessarily mean you've made the wrong decision, right? It's just part of the process. And there were some things, some challenges, interpersonal dynamics and relationships that I had to deal with. And it was kind of a harsh, in a way, overwhelming reentry to come into that. But what was fascinating is I moved through it very differently. I voiced myself very differently. I communicated very differently. I showed up very differently. I made very different choices. I was saying no to an old pattern. I was saying no to colluding with a certain behavior. And I was completely changing that timeline. So all of this was like, bring me to my higher self, bring me to the greatest version of myself on the highest timeline. And part of that is you've got to let go and move through the patterns and dynamics that have kept you on this other timeline that you're like, no, I don't want to be that anymore. I'm shedding that skin. We are in the year of the snake. Shed that shit off, right? But in order to shed, you have to move through and you have to actively show up differently. That is how evolution happens, is it doesn't just like poof, the fairy godmother is going to come in and wave her wand and like poof, it's gone. It's better. All of a sudden, your relationship with your parents are better. Your relationship with your ex is better. Your relationship with your kids are better. Whatever it is, it's not just poof, it's going to make it better. What changes it is the way you show up, the choices you make and the behavior you you show up with and embody. And so that to me, I was very clearly stating like, this soul contract, whatever we had agreed to, it is now going to come to an end. It's resolving itself. I'm terminating it. No more. No more of this karmic loop. No more of this cycle. I'm not going to collude with this anymore. And there was freedom in that. There's a liberation. There's a letting go of who knows what. It could have been lifetimes, right? And ultimately, it liberates everyone. And I love this mantra now of how good could it get for everyone involved. Keep saying that and keep saying, bring me to the highest and greatest version of myself. Not because who I am isn't good enough now, but I choose to be in the greatest version of myself, which also means sometimes, often, take responsibility for your stuff. Take responsibility for the choices that might bring you into a lower timeline, I don't like to use these terms because it often sounds really judgmental. And it's not about like higher and better and lower and worse. It's just like, no, I don't want to repeat these cycles of suffering. I don't want to repeat this cycle of staying small or not having a voice or whatever it might be personally for you. We get to choose. We are the co-creators and we do have multiple versions of ourselves. So which one do you want to be in? Right? And that takes time too, and it deserves its time to process whatever we need to process in order to learn what our soul needs to learn and how it wants to evolve. And when it's ready and when it's at the end of that cycle, we get to choose to let go of it. Or we get to choose to keep on repeating it. But if you're like, you know what, I don't want to keep on doing this. It was the same as where I was for 15 months. I don't want to continue to do this cycle. If it's not going to change, basta. I'm going to make a different decision. I'm going to make a different choice, right? And then that sends you into a totally different um, path, trajectory that's cyclical, but onto that path, onto that version of yourself. But if every day I'm showing up and it's like, okay, bring me to the highest version of myself, how good could it get? And then you respond to what is being presented to you, but from that place, right? How good could it get? And I'm choosing not to repeat the cycles of my past, the stories of my past, the identities of my past, right? You're showing up as an evolved version of you. And then a beautiful piece that is always so helpful is gratitude. I look back and I feel so grateful for the journey that I've been on, even if at times it's nearly broken me. And I'm excited for what is to come, even though I haven't a clue where. And now, the beautiful thing, because I'm not seeking anymore, I'm not looking for that specific place. It's like, okay, surprise me, show me, I'm open. It's a total blank canvas. It's a total clean slate. All I'm here to do is just to listen and then respond. And so I've had all these synchronicity. This one place keeps on, this one geographical place keeps on calling me. It's not where I feel like I want to live, but I feel like, okay, the Celestine prophecy, my next clue is there. This is like a treasure hunt. My next clue is there. So I'm hearing the signs, I'm hearing the messages. And so when I have the moment, I'm going to go to that place and I'm sure that I will find the clue for the next part of this adventure. And that's kind of how it works. And when you've built enough of a connection with yourself and with your higher self and with source, it lends itself to being able to trust the journey and to trust the unknown and to trust that the breadcrumbs are going to be there and to trust that we're going to be guided and supported. And people come into your life, I have amazing people that there's a parallel story that we're sharing. And so we're like morally supporting each other along the way. We can have these conversations and to go, yeah, this has been my experience and this is my experience. And it's just beautiful. And I go back to that, like we're here to be in connection with others, to be in relationship with others. And people come in our lives when they're meant to come in and they leave when they're meant to leave. And it's just trusting the whole journey. So this has been an epically long one and I could continue, but I just really, the message that I want to share today is, can you trust yourself? Can you trust your higher self? And you're going to have moments where you're not. And there are going to be moments where you're just going to be fucked off with your soul, with your higher self, with God, with source, with your angels, with your guides, with your life, with everything. And none of it will make sense. And then one day, when you reach the end of that phase in that cycle, it will all make sense. Similarly, I went through 7 years of being injured when I was younger. It took me away from being a professional ballet dancer. I didn't understand the point. I felt like I was being punished. Everything was being taken away from me. And it wasn't until the end of that 7-year cycle and beyond, actually, that I looked back and go, oh my God, I get it. And that was one of the greatest teachers of my life. So can you trust that life is happening for you and not to you? Can you trust that everything is being orchestrated from a higher level and that everything is happening for a reason? And sometimes it just takes a damn long time for it to make sense, but eventually it will, and it will in its own timing. And, it's okay in those moments. I had that like moment of like, enough, basta. I don't want to do this anymore. And I can't figure it out with my little human brain. So help me. Our higher self, our guides, our angels, they are there willing to help, but we've got to ask for it. We've got, not from a place of like desperation to fix it for me. It's like, no, I'm asking you to guide me right now. But then your job is to listen. You got to listen. And all of this noise and distraction, social media, television, news, opinions of others, all of it is a distraction. So you got to get really quiet and really still and spend time with yourself. Be in nature, be in reflection, be in contemplation, write, meditate, sit, paint, dance, move, do nothing. Do nothing. Rest. Rest if you need to have rest. Whatever it is that allows you to become the receptor again. We, in such a noisy, chaotic world, it's really hard to be a receptor because there's too much static. It's too overwhelming. There's too much energy. There's too much mental static and mental traffic. Create the space so that you can listen, and then you're going to hear a lot. And it might just be breadcrumb by breadcrumb, but it's going to be very clear. And even if it shocks you and you're like, really, this is what I'm doing, there will be a part of you that says, yes, yes, do it. And that's the clarity that we've been waiting for. But it will only come in when we're ready, and it'll only come in when we're quiet enough to be able to hear it. So the invitation is create the space. If you're wanting clarity, create the space, trust the timing, listen, ask for help. Put down your boundaries of like what's enough, but also trust that like if your soul is guiding you and you really trust it to drive you, you got to trust that it's going to drive you through the terrain that you're going through right now. Doesn't mean that if it's hard that it's wrong. It just means that for whatever reason, there's something that you have yet to learn, grow, heal, let go, whatever it is. You're not a project that needs to be fixed, but you're a spiritual being going through an experience that it has elected to experience. So trust it. Try not to control it. The moment you control it, you stifle it, and then it kind of takes longer. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story. If there are any of you that are listening and you want to ask questions or anything that you'd want me to speak to, or, any other bits that I can glean, any of my own personal wisdom that I've, gleaned along the way, I'm so happy to share that, and again, I never say that my way is the right way. I'm just here to share like my human experience and what I've gained from it, and take it and make it your own, or leave what doesn't resonate. Like, it's just the invitation of like, go live your life and know that whatever you're moving through in your humanity, even if it's fucking hard, keep going. Like, I'm here to just say you're not alone. I'm championing you from the corner, of the ring that I'm equally in. And just to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. We're here having this wacky, wild human experience. And, the best that we can do is just be present, be open, be loving, be kind. Let it breathe you. Yeah, the life is breathing you. So dance with it. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. Thank you for being here with me. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.